I love the art of storytelling, and I think it's super important when using it in online marketing. But how can you use it when it comes to safety? Well, I recently did a speech at the Australian Institute of Health and Safety, and it's fair to say it was welcomed with a frosty reception. That may have been because I roasted him for 15 minutes. But if you want to learn how you can implement some of these storytelling techniques when you're talking about safety, this is a speech I did, and I hope you enjoy. Wow. Look at all of these safety people. Feeling safe. So before we get started, I do actually need to get a thumbnail for a video I'm making, a YouTube video. Can we please welcome Stuart to the stage? You see, I'm going to stand here with my hands on my hips, and Stuart's going to take a photo behind me. Now, what I need from you guys is just to sit. It's really good. You're doing a great job. But more importantly, what I need from you guys is actually to look annoyed. Annoyed, which shouldn't be too hard for a bunch of safety people, I wouldn't have thought. So, okay. You ready, Stuart? On 3? Annoyed, guys. Okay. 1, 2, 3. You finished? Okay. Everyone, round of applause for Stuart. Do you want to see what it looks like? Made a mock-up. I roasted hundreds of safety officers, is what it's going to be titled. You see, when I got asked to make a speech here today, frantically emailed back, said, "What do you want me to talk about?" Amanda got back to me and she said, "Whatever you want." Whatever I want. You want me, a tradie, in front of hundreds of safety people to talk about whatever I want. She said yes. Now, I can't tell you how long I have waited for this moment. So without further ado, and this goes out to all of the tradies, my first roast for the evening. How many safety officers does it take to change a light bulb? Anyone? No. None. Because it's knock-off time by the time you finish your risk assessment. Ha! It's funny because it's true. Next, how do you know that you're working with a safety person? Because they take a checklist into the dunny. Unbutton pants, check. Take pants down, check. No, I'm joking. You guys are doing amazing work, helping hard-working Australians get home safe. There are quite a few of you here tonight, and I am wondering, who is looking after all of those out-of-date Band-Aids? Such an important job. So it's no secret that tradies and safety people never really seen eye to eye. But it wasn't until the other month where I cut my finger that I really thought, you guys are just on another level. So the story goes is I picked up a cable and I cut my finger. Now I am a Sparky, so I do have soft skin. Shout out to Nivea for men. But I did want to report this massive injury. So I went over to my foreman and I said, "Hey, Matty, I need to report this tiny, minuscule, insignificant, non-LTI scratch on my finger." And he said, yeah. "But I think the safety bloke's going to be a while." And I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Well, I caught him down the back with Liz. They were in the act."
said, "You don't mean..." Oh yeah, they were deep into something about the stitching on the harness. Harness? What do you mean? They needed a harness? Yeah. Well, they're going to be getting into some tight, confined spaces. And I think Rob was there as well. Rob? What was Rob doing there? Well, mate, what happens if one of them gets stuck? You're going to need to pull them out. I said, righto. But what am I going to do about my finger? And Matty said, I think there's a bunch of out-of-date Band-Aids over there that you can grab and fix yourself up. So, wow, that is a lot of real estate. Holy crap. That handsome devil. So I'm sure you guys did not just come here to get roasted. I mean, I am surprised there is quite a few of you here, actually. Did we not peek at the guy that saved hundreds of people from an A380? I don't understand. But I do know you guys like to punish yourselves, so you're into that type of stuff. So who the bloody hell am I? Why am I wearing this high-vis? And more importantly, what can a washed-up tradie like me teach you about storytelling? Well, before we get into that, I want to give you two storytelling examples. The first one is what you might call a typical safety announcement. A man in his 20s, on the 20th of March, fell from a ladder, sustaining an injury to his hand, where he was rushed to hospital and lost several days off work. Pretty normal, factual. Contrast it with this. John, an industrial sprinkler fitter, for 20 years was asked to work the weekend shift. And although exhausted, he needed the extra work. You see, he was saving for a house with his wife, Sarah, and his newborn daughter, Ella. Keen for the extra cash, he went into work. It was a new shop fit out. It was simple. You just needed to fit some sprinkler heads to the ceiling. So he put on his tool bag and he put in the sprinkler heads and he went up the ladder. But as he reached for the first one, he slipped. Fortunately, he caught himself on the way down, only sustaining an injury to his hand. He was rushed to hospital where his wife and daughter met him, thankful that he's only going to miss a couple of days off work. So it was a bit more engaging, yeah? Kind of hits the brain centers a bit differently. So that was just one example. So as introduced before, my name is David List. I've been working in the industrial space for large infrastructure companies for about 13 to 15 years. I'm in fact an A-grade Sparky and an instrument technician. And I love to throw that last one in because inevitably people think in their head, he must be a really good musician. In fact, no, I'm very crap at musical instruments. An instrument technician is somebody that will install and calibrate instruments that measure things such as pressure, flow, maybe the strength of the stitching on your harness. It's a niche little trade, and I love it. But it is a bit of a dying art. You see, traditionally, to become an instrument technician, you had to do a 3-year apprenticeship, or you could do a dual trade, which was your electrical apprenticeship and your instrument ticket as well. 5 years. Nowadays, you can go online and get a 6-week course to become an instrument technician with something we like to call in the industry a cereal box certificate. Now, inevitably, I saw these people come through the industry and learnt they didn't know anything. And what's more, the nature of the water industry, because of contractual things and stuff that was above my pay grade, we didn't have any apprentices at all. So frustrated and wanting to pass on my knowledge, I turned to social media. And I started making videos about what I do.
Righto, legend. This massive poopsicle.
It's disgusting.
That's better. Let's just make that a little bit bigger.
In the H-legged evolution
Is the end product that can't be handled by the normal treatment process.
But this is called a primary resistive starter.
Shout out to cat generators for that last one, that was fun. So I did try to make my videos fun and entertaining, but ultimately I was trying to teach the next generation coming through to my industry. And amongst me getting tons of crap from my mates and the occasional, "Can you please take down said video because you're not wearing the right PPE?" Thanks, guys. I did eventually go on to build a following of around 50,000 followers, millions of views, and several sponsorships, and all that other stuff that makes me sound like a complete wanker. And about 6 months ago, I started my business, List Media, that helps tradies convert with online content. But undoubtedly, one of my proudest achievements is growing my YouTube channel, ThinkList, to a point where I could reach people with my message across the world. Who has a YouTube channel? How many subscribers? Let's compare. Oh, there's another one over there. No? 270. That's less than mine, so that's okay. We can say that. I can help you out with that, by the way. Well, growing a YouTube channel is very, very hard, yeah? Super hard. And despite there being 2.5 billion monthly active users, billion a month, only 114 million of those are actually creators. That's less than 5%. And of those 5%, only 1.75% of them will go on to get more than 10,000 subscribers. And that is how you sound like a true wanker. That's me. I said it. That's right, I did, yeah. So how do you grow a following using video? Or at least this is what I was asking myself when I was grinding away and made so many videos. And this is where I need to make a confession, because before I started making electrical content, I actually had a channel called Tiny Tech Tips. So cute. You see, one day when I was browsing through YouTube, going through old reruns of Full Frontal, my favourite show, an ad popped up in my face. Bright white screen, black bold letters, and a voiceover. It said, "I make thousands from faceless YouTube videos and you can too." Wow. But I initially shrugged this off as a scam. Unfortunately, in a moment of weakness, I blame Eric Banner. I decided it'd be a good idea. So I started my channel, Tiny Tech Tips, just me and Eric Banner, sharing my screen with the world with titles such as "How to Run Command Prompt as Administrator," only on Windows 10, by the way. That was my first one. I did get better. Number 49, "How to Show Your Battery Percentage on the Apple iPhone." Now, I bet nobody knows how to do that. And my personal favourite, number 94, "How to Translate Any Language Using the Google Translate extension." And for some reason, I felt the need to put a poster of the award-winning movie Willow in Mandarin. I really thought I was going to get some views. And in retrospect, as ridiculous as it is, I was waiting for my views. So after about 150 videos, countless mornings getting up, screen recording, and posting to YouTube, I gave up on my YouTube journey. Until I was scrolling through my YouTube analytics one day and I saw something very unusual. Views. I was actually getting views. But why was it the titles such as 7 Steps to Becoming a Ghost Online, or my personal favourite, 10 Things Outlook Can Do For You? I spent days on this thumbnail. Still quite proud of it. And these 2 videos are still on my channel if you want to go and have a laugh. But why were these ones getting views? You see, not all of my videos were actually faceless screen recordings. Some of them I had built up the courage to be on camera and actually speak in front of it. But was this why I was getting views? I didn't care. I just wanted more views. So I continued to make my crappy videos, not knowing what I was doing. And inevitably, I got no more views. So once again, I gave up on my YouTube dream. Until I posted that first electrical video to social media and thought, I'm going to change out my YouTube channel, Tiny Tech Tips, to Think Lists and talk about something I'm passionate about. I'm going to talk about electrical stuff. And I posted my first video. Electrician reacts to shocking electrical, pun intended. Now this was me just reacting to a Facebook page called Crappy Electrical. It was quite funny. But I actually did get some views. It wasn't a lot, but I did get some views. And it wasn't until my next video, Electrician reacts to electro boom fails. Who knows who Electro Boom is? No, one up the back here? No, nobody. Electro Boom is a Canadian YouTuber that suffers mild electric shocks whilst teaching people about electricity. He's very funny. And it was when I posted this video that I had the biggest dopamine rush of my entire life. Because with a click-through rate of 25%, now that is bloody high, by the way, it quickly moved to the YouTube homepage where it racked up thousands of views. I'd made it. You never forget your first. So what the hell does all of this have to do with storytelling? Well, my channel was kind of a mix of things. It was reaction, I had some how-to on there, and then some stuff of me at work. And I now wanted to know why some of these were getting views and some weren't. So I went on a journey. Some might call it the hero's journey. I started researching videos like mine, successful ones, and I started to see a pattern, not one that I could really put my finger on, but I knew it had to do with story. So I started researching all of these storytelling techniques, and I came across things like the Harmon Circle and the hero's journey. Who's heard of the hero's journey? I knew you would. My God, no one's heard of the hero's journey. That does really surprise me. Wow. Okay, I'm going to educate you guys. Okay. The hero's journey is the path that a protagonist will take throughout the story. It is literally every superhero story that you have watched in the last decade. Guaranteed. Also, movies such as Harry Potter, Finding Nemo, The Matrix, we just keep going on and on. The Matrix is fascinating because it is a literal representation of the hero's journey. It goes a little like this. You have the known and unknown, and the hero is called to adventure. They often refuse. It's too hard. I don't want to do it. But they do it anyway. They cross the threshold into the unknown. They gain a mentor. They face some challenges, often several, until they get into the valley of despair, the lowest point, where they can transform, atone, and then return a changed hero. That is literally every movie you will watch from now on. I'm sorry, I've ruined it for you. But in fact, the story I told you about my YouTube channel was based on the hero's journey. Look, it's me. I was called to YouTube by that stupid ad. I refused. It's a scam. There is no way that I will start. So I started a YouTube channel, Tiny Tech Tips. I gained Eric Banner as a mentor. I couldn't get views. And I tried. Many times I could not get views. So I gave up. But I eventually changed my channel from Tiny Tech Tips to Think List. And I started to learn more about YouTube. Returning with the greatest YouTube channel ever to exist. Although I think Mr. Beast might have something to say about that. But this was quite sophisticated. It takes a bit to learn the hero's journey and the Harmon circle. And it didn't really fit with the videos that I saw on YouTube. Why were they successful when they didn't have the hero's journey? So, it wasn't until I came across the ABT that I knew I'd struck gold. Now, I was going to ask you who's heard of the ABT, but no one heard of the hero's journey, so I'm assuming no one has heard of the ABT. Oh, wow, okay. Okay, so the ABT was developed by a guy called Randy Olson. He is a scientist and a filmmaker over in the US. And he wanted to know why some scientific papers were resonating more than others. This was kind of regardless of the content. You could have created unobtainium, but it didn't matter because you didn't have the right content. So he went on a journey. And he did a heap of research. He researched some of the greatest minds in science and storytelling. And he came up with South Park. One of the greatest shows to ever exist, arguably. But like it or not, South Park has had some of the most unprecedented longevity in television history. So it was probably worth investigating. You see, Randy was watching a documentary on South Park called 6 Days to Air. And in it, the creator, Trey Parker, said something, just a tiny little snippet. He said, I like to replace the word and with but and therefore. What does this mean? Well, Randy knew straight away. And he compiled all of his knowledge from science and storytelling. And he came up with the ABT, which stands for and, but, and therefore. Groundbreaking. But let's break it down. So somewhat counterintuitively to what Trey Parker said, Randy felt the need to include the word and in the ABT, and I'll tell you why. It's because it adds context. It is an agreement statement. I'll give you an example. Rob put on his harness and he stepped through the confined space. Immediately, you might think that Rob is a construction worker, someone like me in high vis. Contrast it with this. Rob puts on the harness and begins climbing the rock wall. Rob is now a rock climber. Adding context to your story is very important, but we should be careful about how much we add. Rob puts on the harness, steps into the confined space, and he turns on the torch, and he goes to fix the pipe, and he goes for some lunch, and it's really bloody boring. Just set your scene and move on. Which brings us to but. But is a conflict word and it will introduce a problem to your story. Rob puts on his harness and steps into the confined space. But as Liz is lowering him down into the hole, the stitching on the harness breaks loose. Now, I don't know what Rob and Liz were doing in that room, but they weren't checking the stitching. Conflict is often the catalyst for intrigue and it helps progress the story. Which brings us to therefore. Therefore is a consequence statement and it will provide a path for resolution. But as Liz lowered Rob down into the hole and the stitching began to break, therefore Rob, sensing the impending doom, kicked off the side where he could sit on a ledge waiting for reinforcements to arrive. That is the ABT. Now, it sounds simple and it's super powerful, but it can take a lot of practice to get right. Therefore, after learning this technique, I wanted to test it out myself. That is a picture of the back of my head. This is actually a clip where I tested the ABT in my introduction. And I'm going to play it to you and I want to see if you can pick it up.
G'day, you legend. Now, I've been hearing a lot about this thing called ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. ChatGPT.
Apparently, it's some AI that's going to replace everyone's jobs. But I'm a tradie. I mean, surely it couldn't replace skilled labour. Or could it? So I decided that I was going to put this AI to the test. I've got this very specific current transformer installation that I'm doing for some group metering. And I'm going to ask it how to do it. So if somebody that had no skill set whatsoever could walk up and complete the job, I think I'm out of a job.
Who thinks they could pick the ABT? No one. You did. Oh, by the way, this is a slide from my Storybricks framework. It helps people build their brand using storytelling. You can get it. It's a whole PDF thing. Just go to my website, listmedia.com.au, put in your email and I'll spam you forever. No, I won't. But this video was called, Could AI Take Over Electricians? Essentially, I set the scene. We all know ChatGPT, and apparently it's going to take over our jobs. But surely couldn't take my job. I'm a tradie. I use my hands. Therefore, I'm going to test this out. That was it. Now, I've actually put timestamps where I had the ABT across a 36-second introduction. 30 seconds is about right for an introduction for YouTube. More importantly, there is something down the bottom there called a retention graph. This is what we are given as creators by YouTube, and it lets us know who's watching and how long for. A very important metric. And after 36 seconds, 75% of people were still watching. Now, for those that are uninitiated to YouTube, this is bloody awesome. I was really happy. What's more is that the majority of the 75% continue to watch until the end. YouTube loves this, and I did too. Now, I thought that I had stumbled across like some of this magical storytelling secret. But just as Neo takes the red pill, I was about to be revealed there was a whole other world out there. Started off with an ABT here and there. Sure enough, there was just ABTs all over the place. Movies, TV shows, billboards, emails, there was ABTs everywhere. Who's watching this? How good is it? I absolutely love this show. If you haven't heard of it, Clarkson's Farm. Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear. He has a farm. He gets someone to manage it, but that person goes away and he needs to manage it himself. Inevitably, chaos ensues. It is hilarious. But I sat down to watch the first episode, what do you know, an ABT. I'm going to play this for you and see if you can pick it up. You have to pick this up now, okay?
It stretches from those trees over there on the far horizon, then it goes behind that big wood, down into the valley, and then up past here to a point a couple of miles over there. And ever since I bought it back in 2008, it's been run by a chap from the village. However, he told me a couple of months ago that he is retiring. So I've come up with a plan. I shall farm it myself.
An ABT, used by Amazon Prime. So essentially, he's set the scene that he has a big farm and that a chap down the road has been looking after it. However, that chap is retiring. Therefore, I'm going to look after it myself. That is it. Something to note about this is that it is only 30 seconds long and it sets the scene for an entire series. That is how powerful the ABT is. Now, I did want to point out that he used, however, instead of but. This is just another conflict word. So you can swap out any other conflict word as you like. But how can you, as a safety person, use the ABT to help manipulate people like me? That's what you're here for, isn't it? Well, I've got an idea. Firstly, stop pinging us for out-of-date Band-Aids. I'm sick of it. They're not milk. No, seriously, I want to do a live workshop on JSAs. Surely one of our favourite subjects. Now, I've done millions of these things, and I don't think I'm exaggerating. JSA is a document that identifies hazards associated with a task and then implements controls to reduce the risk. I'm seeing some confused faces. That is concerning. Are we all on the same page? Yeah? And if someone says to me, David, we need to do a swim, I'm going to chuck you in the Yarra River where you can do exactly that. This is just an example. If you want to argue about swims afterwards, about how ridiculous they are, I can talk to you later. Okay, the task is to grease up this valve. It's exposed and it needs to turn, but it's in this manhole in the middle of a road. Now, for those from Melbourne, this is a real place. It is in Balwyn, and it's the intersection of Union and Whitehorse Road. This is an actual job I used to do. Well, I used to help do because manholes are beneath me. I thought that was great. So there is a huge water main that runs down Union Road. And there's a valve that sits in this pit, and occasionally it may need to get operated. Not often, but when it does, it needs to work. So the maintenance crew will come along, they'll pop this Gatic lid, we'll grease up the valve and check that it works. Now, a couple of things to note about this job is that that pit is only 1 metre deep. About there. Second thing is that this job takes 4 hours to complete. 1 hour to do the job and 3 hours to do the paperwork. And I'm not kidding. Okay. I need 3 hazards from you guys. I need you to call out 3 hazards, and I'm only going to pick the ones that will magically come up on this screen. Confined space. I don't have that one on my screen. What's that? Vehicles? Traffic. Getting hit by a car. But I do like the confined space one. We can come back to that. What else? Something that should be on every single risk assessment. At least that's what I put on. Oh. Slips, trips, and manual handling. Now, I don't think anybody would argue that these are appropriate hazards for this task. In fact, finding the hazards for a task is often the easiest bit. What can be more difficult is actually implementing the controls. And that's because of something called risk tolerance. You see, my risk tolerance is going to be different from the guy that sits in the office all day long, which would be different to the guy that skydives all day long. So when you get in a group setting, often your controls are different. So why don't we try to apply the ABT or a narrative around a hazard? Let's try the traffic. So, getting hit by a car, that's what it is, okay? Dave knelt down. Oh my God, this is why I gave up being a tradie, okay. Dave knelt down to grease up the valve, and then he stood up to stretch his legs. But as he emerged from the hole, bang! He's decapitated by a car, where his mates had to come and pull him out and they're scarred for life. Now that escalated quickly, but I will tell you, it is much more visceral than getting hit by a car. Do you not think? So based on this ABT, what controls might we think about implementing? Exactly. We ended up doing this in the middle of the morning with traffic control so we could reduce the risk. Slips. Slips, trips, slips. My favourite thing to put on a risk assessment. Okay, this one is falling into the hole. Dave approaches the open manhole and begins to descend. But as he puts his foot on the ladder, crash! He falls into the hole and he breaks his ankle. Therefore, his mates go and get the rescue gear. They put it into the hole and they rescue him. He's going to have a couple of weeks off work. Now, this one was interesting even when I was doing it. We never bought rescue gear to this job. It's not a confined space, or at least not considered to be a confined space. It's not falling from heights. We would only typically take rescue gear when it was a super high-risk job. So do we need rescue gear? Were we happy for him to be in that hole with a broken leg or broken ankle until the ambulance came along and he was rescued that way? What if he fell in the hole and he hit his head? Does he need first aid? Don't know. Just gets the wheels turning a bit more, yeah? The last one, manual handling. Lifting the Gatic lid. That's what it's called. Fun fact, these Gatic lids can be upwards of 50 kilos. They are very bloody heavy. And you need something called a Gatic lifter to lift them up. Kind of stick in, twist them around. Dave inserted the Gatic lifters and began to lift. But as he lifted upwards, snap! He slipped a disc. Therefore, he's going to miss 6 months off work. This, I don't think, is unusual. It's probably the bane of your existence, back injuries, I would have thought. So what could have Dave done differently? 2-man lift. We didn't typically have engineering controls for something like this, so I don't know if that exists, but again, it just gets you thinking, right? Now, this is just one way that you can use the ABT as a safety person within your organisation. You can also use it for things like emails, speeches like this one, anything. But why is it that a properly constructed narrative is so important? Well, there has been numerous studies around the power of storytelling, particularly around the chemicals released in the brain. Chemicals such as cortisol for memory retention, dopamine for engagement, think in TikTok, Reels. But one of the most intriguing to me is actually the elevated levels of oxytocin. Oxytocin is the chemical that helps us with empathy and connection. And controlling others' emotion is one of the most powerful things that we can do to manipulate behaviour. And this is exactly the job that you guys are in. Okay, so this is a lot to take in. I kind of get it. And by now, a lot of people kind of look at me and they're like, oh yeah, I can see the benefits of ABT. I'll use the ABT, it's really good. But there are others that are sitting on the fence and they're like, I don't want any extra admin for doing storytelling. So for those sitting on the fence, I want to tell you a story. I want you to close your eyes. No touchy-feely. I know you guys are into that stuff. Close your eyes, and I want you to imagine that you are 21 again. And if you are 21 or younger, what are you doing at a safety conference? I don't know. No, all are invited here. So close your eyes and imagine that you are 21 again. But you are also a third-year electrical apprentice. You work for a large construction company. Think shops, factories, conference centres, not too dissimilar to this one. You are new to the job, so you're pretty eager to please. You've been given a new job. It's a chocolate shop in the very heart of the city. You're excited. And what's more, you're going to be the lead electrician. But deep down, you know that working within our A grade, that's wrong. But everyone does it. It should be fine. Besides, they're going to give you a second-year apprentice to help you. Wow. But as you start the job, it is not as romantic as you first thought. The shop is old. The switchboard is ancient. And years of additions means that there are cables strung across the ceiling, cemented in the wall, leaving this electrical spaghetti everywhere. You do tell your boss, but you leave out a few details for fear of feeling inadequate. Over the next few months, you navigate angry tradies, many parking fines, and the occasional tripping of the main fuse as you go and try and find all of these hidden circuits. You are exhausted. But you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the weekend, and the job is drawing to a close. So you decide that you're going to treat yourself to a movie. As you go in, you gladly turn your phone off. You sit down and you relax. The movie is awesome. You are feeling good. But as you turn on your phone, a barrage of text messages from your boss. Missed call, 1, 2, 3. Call me. Call me now. You reluctantly call him back. The news, it is not good. A tradie working the weekend shift has suffered an electrical shock. He was fitting sprinkler heads to the roof when he fell from a ladder and suffered electrical burns to his hand. For those closing their eyes, you can open them. This is my safety story. The story goes that I left an electrical cable in the wall as a spare. It was never meant to be fitted off. But the second-year apprentice came along and thought, I better make sure I fit that off. Unfortunately, the other end of that cable was coiled up and left in the roof with a tiny bit of copper hanging out that was touching the completely isolated sprinkler system. This incident actually crushed me. And what's worse, I didn't even know John's name. I just came up with John in my head to deal with this entire shit show. What's more, this whole thing was just swept under the rug. And what was kind of confusing to me is that in the years after, I went on to make some really stupid safety decisions, even after this. I still try to reconcile it now, but I think it is because I was never told stories like this one in this way. You guys probably have one of the hardest jobs in our industry, and that is to change tradies' behaviour. That is hard, I know. But if you learn the skill of storytelling, I guarantee the safety culture at your organisation will change for the better. Thank you.
That was it, guys. I hope you learnt something, maybe about yourself, maybe about me, and maybe how to use storytelling when it comes to safety. So I do say this all the time, but I would love it if you could like, write a review on whatever podcast platform you're on. Make sure you share this with your mum. I'm David Liss, and this has been the Digital Tradie. Until next time, make sure you're creating some legendary content.